over here with me, the legend. We're about to get down on the history of inshore fishing, but first of all, I want to thank your Epic Vibes. I want to thank my boy Andrew right there, my producer. I got Kenny. we're waiting on the Twitch. Twitch.tv/not-a-boredom-filtered. There you go. Okay. Yeah. Anyhow, so that's if you guys want to try to get on Twitch, because because Andrew, my producer's streamed before on Twitch. It was his first time on YouTube. It won't be, this is a tiny hiccup.
What was it like? Twitch pause.
Hey, I always tell people it's the Twitch and the pause. But yeah, what a cadence, huh? So, but anyhow, I want to get back and introduce Bob Morris over here before we get going too soon. So Bob Morris, if people don't know, is absolutely first and foremost a father.
Yep.
Married. You got your sons at UCF.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you are flip paddle to Northeast Florida.
I don't know about that.
I believe you are. He writes blogs. I mean, we got people begging for him to blog again. Surfer, accomplished surfer.
Yeah, I used to really enjoy surfing. Still do. On the longboard.
And we talked about, you go, Chip, I didn't know you surfed. I was always a guy that wasn't a good surfer, but I could hang. Yeah. I surfed with the boys on the west side, ROTW.
Yep.
And then last but not least, just an accomplished fisherman. What I really love about you, Bob, is that you didn't slow down. You know what I mean? And it's like, when I mean slow down, you're 58.
Yep.
And I'm 60.
Mm-hmm.
I really love tournament fishing, and I used to, put my passion into it. But like I said, after, we bought the restaurant, and then Tyler was born, and they had his diagnosis, I just knew I wasn't going to be able to compete with these guys being a weekend warrior. And shout out to the guys that can do it like that. I know you got to have some time on the water. And once I knew I wasn't going to be able to put the time on, I kind of faded back, but I was always watching. We were always watching.
Yeah.
Same with surfing. You're always watching the surfers now. Exactly. It's like, even though we didn't surf, we know what it's like. Do that. And you always stayed there, Bob, man. I mean, you were always consistently right there, which to me is gigantic, because you know how hard it is in this game.
Well, I look back and, you can show that picture right there. Yeah. That was, the little one here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's me as a young buck.
Yeah.
And my first ever tournament paycheck. And
how big was that fish, Bob?
It was like an 8-pound bass.
Yeah. So
caught it on.
You guys can see it's a black bass.
Yeah. A gold Rapala.
That's where it all started.
And so my stepfather, his name was George Singleton. Now, George is what I would call he was an outdoorsman. He could go shoot ducks, deer, all that. Blue water fishing when I was a kid. My parents got divorced. I moved to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And he took me under his wing. And, this is a little kid, they would drag me out on the Bertram, and we're going out to the ledge off of Murrells Inlet, South Carolina. I remember my stepfather fighting a over 500-pound blue marlin in a tournament for like 5 hours, and it finally got in the motors and broke them off.
So it was already in your blood.
Well, I don't know that it's in my blood, but I would say, I learned from a true outdoorsman. And if you look at that picture, there was just like a wooden piling that was in our driveway.
Yeah, and that's like that relates to people having a boat or being out. That's like
but what he did is, he gave me access to a 12-foot John boat. Right. So I was a latchkey kid. So after school every day, my mom was at work, he was at work. I would come home, knock out the homework real quick, and there was a pond across the street, and it was maybe a block wide and 3 blocks long. And I had the John boat, I had a little push button ultralight Zebco, and I had a paddle. And I would make a lap around the lake every day after school, throwing little beetle spins and rooster tails and stuff like that, catching
Snag with Sally.
Yeah, and once in a while, wow, I'll get a 2-pound bass. I'm like, well, this is pretty friggin' cool bass, you know. So then I got up to a little bit bigger Zebco, and I'd throw, the old cream jelly worm, the blue tail black jelly worm.
Purple shad.
Well, then George is like, well, you're over there catching fish, I'll bring you along, but he's like, you're going to have to learn how to cast. So he gave me the 5,000 Ambassador, the red one, and I would stand on that, and he's like, I'm going to put the bucket out here. When you can start hitting the bucket 9 times out of 10, wherever I move it, you can come on. So he took me to this tournament, which was in the PD River in South Carolina, and I got that big bass right at the end of the day, 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a gold Rapala. And he's like one of those guys, I was getting backboated all day. I got snakes up in my hair, and, he's up on the front fishing. Well, I nailed this bass off of the weed line, and, pretty excited. And we get in, and some other guys had gotten a bigger one. And about 2 weeks later, we get a knock on the door, and the guy tournament director comes like, hey, we found out those guys had the fish in a pen. you won the big bass.
Wow.
And it was like a trophy and like $50. And this is like 1978 or 79 or something. But I was super stoked. I'm like, that kind of started the game. And then we were.
Oh yeah. Sorry, you can come in a little bit closer if you have to. Can you get the shot? Sorry about that, because I'm hearing my headphones. Yeah, that's a great story. Yeah. So
and so that kind of started it. And then I grew up and about 14 years old got into surfing with a buddy of mine, Greg Nichols. Now Greg, he was in fishing big, and he lived in a place that had a bigger lake than I did, and we would go down there and fish at night and throw shiners. And his lake had 5 and 6, 7 pound bass in it. Right. So that was what we did. But then we got into surfing.
Step on that light. Sorry about me.
There you go. And surfing, took over. Right. And started competing in the ESA and the NSSA. Then I came to school down at JU. Went to work at Disney after I graduated, and you and I ran across back in JU, and that's when we kind of learned to hunt women over at the Riverside bars.
It was Dockside, campus corner first. Dockside. So we went and drank beer at Dockside, then we went to campus to do shots.
Right.
Yeah. We met because you were part of the Arlington gang.
Yep.
So, they were like, and you with Billy Frazier and everybody.
Yeah, but. I didn't know you fished or surfed. You didn't know I did, but we knew each other from partying and having a good time. And those were the good old days.
Oh, absolutely.
Went to work at Disney, and then, worked there for like 3 years and kind of hit a glass ceiling because I didn't have a degree in accounting and I was an auditor. So I came back up here, started the t-shirt business, and I moved in with my buddy, Jamie Havard. He was going through a divorce. He had a little condo down in Ponte Vedra. And he's like, you can put the John boat in the garage, which was huge for me.
Yeah.
And his grandfather had brought him into the game, and he left him like a 17-foot cobia center console. So at the time, and you'll relate to this, we didn't have the internet. Right. So you're looking for every month, patiently waiting for the Florida Sportsman.
Oh, yeah.
And Florida I come down here, and much like this podcast is you've got Monroe Campbell out the door on TV because they could rent space from Comcast. You had Mitch Kaufman doing the Radical Side surfing.
Love the Radical Side.
You had Grady Warren with Outdoors show with Grady Warren, and you had Jim Hammond.
Right.
Fun Fishing with Jim. So we would look at these shows, and this is how we got it. So when I got here, I'm like, this Monroe Campbell's out there, and they're wearing the redfish and the trout out. And the thing, you'll remember this because we all started the same way back then. It was a shrimp on a jig.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And you know that. Yeah. You talk about going to Simpsons, and these guys are back in the creeks, and so you
remember Jim Allen that videoed for Monroe because they had the old VHS. You could hear him breathing.
Yeah.
He's like, because that's how it was. I mean, they had it was almost like us doing our podcast. Yeah. Well, they didn't have to hire a production company. They had that VHS, and it had a microphone right there, and it was out the door of Monroe Campbell. Yeah. And he had a talk in. This is one of the greatest things about. So he would let people call in live, and I'd ever go, "Hey Monroe, what's the quickest way to catch a buzz?" Next caller. He'd be like, "Next caller." But I mean, so those are cutting times. Yeah. I mean, I didn't miss Monroe Campbell's show ever. Yeah. I remember he was trolling. One time he was doing a show out there at the bridge at Danes Point. I was like, don't post this up, Jim. Come on, man. I mean, come on, Monroe. But they would do it. And I remember they'd be trolling over there at Dunn's Creek. Yep. They were always trolling because they did a lot of trolling saltwater. Yep. But then they did a lot of shiner fishing for bass. Yep. And he used to put in down at Passetti's Fish Camp. Mm-hmm. And Jim Allen was living down there too. And me and Mike Phillips, that's how I started my fishing. Yeah. So I was similar to you. I fished all the ponds and all that. And then, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I was getting how it comes together.
Yeah, it does.
Mike Phillips started Star Roofing. Mm-hmm. And Mike was one of my first friends to ever have a little bit of money. And so he bought a bass boat, and he bought like a Glastron bass boat with a 70. And before that, we had like Gnu's and stuff. We never really had a boat. And Mike and I would go to Rodman because I didn't even know about the Intercoastal yet. But I was still watching Monroe Campbell, but I didn't have a fix on inshore fishing. Mm-hmm. And so we'd go down there, and Mike would kick my butt, like running shiners underneath the hydrilla, drifting hydrillas. And then I had a friend of mine, Harry Gale, who's no longer with us, and his brother passed away, Robert Gale. He lived in Holly Oaks on Fort Caroline. And me and him were friends, and he said, "Hey, I want to take you out here to Mill Cove." I said, "Mill Cove? What is that? You mean the place underneath the Danes Point Bridge out there? Dude, that's crazy out there. I'm not going out there. I didn't know." So he took me out there. We went to the grass lines, went over to Quarantine Island, straight from Lonnie Worm boat ramp, and we were throwing popper corks to shrimp, and I caught my first 27-inch redfish, and I told Mike Phillips, we're never going back to Rodman ever again. Right. I said, we got in our backyard, dude. We were driving 2.5 hours on the weekend to go down, and so that was my first taste of inshore. And then so I started with shrimp, live shrimp, and I perfected the float rig, which that's what I got my 9.5 pound trout on. But then I met a guy named Rick at the boat ramp, and he said immediately he was always show up at the bridge with a big redfish. I said, "Where'd you get that redfish at?" He goes, "On the grass lines on a prop bait." I was like, "What?" And at this time I still had my trolling motor on my transom, and I had a 14-foot stump knocker. And the first thing he told me was, "Well, you're not going to catch shit till you get that trolling motor off the back of your boat and put it on the front of your boat." I was like, "Well, what are you talking about?" And this time there still weren't any flats boats up here.
Yeah, no.
There was no. And I remember the first person I ever saw artificial was Rick Thacker, and he was in that bass boat. He came flying through Mill Cove Bridge one time doing like 60, and I was in my stump knocker, and so I ended up putting my trolling motor up on the front of the boat. I took a piece of angle iron because the stump knockers didn't have any place to put a trolling motor, and I just had a screw-on one with a 12-volt battery.
Click, click,
and
5 forward, 3 reverse.
And I was I was telling you the first time I ever caught a fish on artificial, other than a stingray grub, because I'm talking about artificial to me is a plug. Yeah, and that's no disrespect to soft plastics, but to me, when first time I ever got turned on to the 52M red and white is Rick took me. And this guy, and he took me to the little island that's no longer there, that was east of the Mill Cove Bridge, the little island out there that Ted took you to. And we went out there, and I was on a 5500 Alvin Garcia with the push button, and he says, "Throw it there next to that island." And I took that 52M, and I had a 6.5 foot bass rod, flung it up there, and I reel it back, and I just reeled it straight to him, and he's like, boom, right off the end, a 9-pound redfish. Yeah, I was sold after that, dude.
That's all you need.
I mean, once I learned the power of that plug and how I could cover more ground and become more like dialing these fish in and learning, and the rest was history. And then I turned Mike Phillips onto the 52M, and then Raymond McCauley, who was me and him were already fishing. Raymond's another.
He's
Raymond's
OG.
Raymond's a huge OG. He's actually the first one that turned me on to going out there and trolling stingray grubs. Yeah, the paddle day. Remember the green ones? And I don't know if you remember at the bridge when those guys used to troll. The guy was a welding instructor at FCCJ, and they had their boat set up in the cove, and they would troll in the fall. And they'd have 4 little rods out with the little with the pin spin fishers, or the 430s. Remember the little 430 SS pins and all that? Yeah. So they weren't trolling heavy; they were just trolling, but they were trolling grubs down the bridge, and the rods would just double over. Yeah, it'd be a trout. They're like, "Oh God, they got a trout." So Raymond, I said, "Raymond, you got to check out this plug." And Raymond was already a good bass fisherman. And no disrespect to you, Raymond, I know you were a badass, but when I showed you that 52M red and white, you're like, "Oh God, this is addicting," And so after that, everything was history. And but let's talk about the first time we tournament fished.
Well, aside from doing the stuff as a kid, right? Come down here, and I was living with Jamie and had the John boat. And we would go, I would put in at Mike's place, which is now where Aunt Kate's is down at Volano. Right. And I would just go to the creeks, Robinson Creek, the 2 creeks right across there, and I would just work my way in. And, like we talked the other day, what we did back then is there was no Google Maps or GPS. And so you would go at low tide and just kind of creep back in with the tide. And we were throwing a lot of 1/4-ounce jigs and chartreuse curly tails. That was a go-to.
Automatically, man. That was one.
And what we were doing back then is all we wanted to do is put up numbers. So I didn't care how big they were. If I could go out and catch 40 or 50, that's a good day. And we would go back in those creeks and just wear out the 17, 18, 19-inch rat reds and think we were just badass,
Oh, we were. I mean, we didn't even know about schools of redfish. I didn't know about schools.
But so the VIP tournament, because in 96 was the first triple challenge, and you can speak on that, but that's our buddy, the mayor of Chickapit, Frank won. And I've fished with Frank several times. Super guy, and he's just one of those guys. He has his area, Chickapit, Mount Pleasant. I mean, you go with this guy, it's kind of like going with you the other day or Eddie C. Yeah. I can tell immediately, because if somebody comes and tells me we're going to go here and this is going to happen, and they repeat that all day long. So that's how Frank is. We're going to go to this oyster. He calls it the oyster rate.
You know that I nicknamed him the mayor of Chickapit.
Yeah, did you?
Yeah, I gave him the nickname Frank Gregg, and he'll tell you. He was just that back when he won the very first triple challenge with like 276 boats. Yeah. And I was like, I wanted that trophy that Ray Thomas did. It was a red trout and flounder trophy that was just so badass. But he won it, and I said, and then we started seeing each other on the water and all that, and I said, "Man, you're the mayor of Chickapit," and so that's kind of stuck throughout the years. And I mean, he's got an infectious personality.
Oh yeah, Frank's the best.
Everybody loves Frank Gregg. Yeah. So anyhow, so it was the first one was in 1996.
Right. So I didn't fish that.
Yeah.
That was, we were still piddling around in the John boat.
Well, I got 4th place in it. And I was pissed, and I caught everything. We caught the redfish. Actually, Raymond, we had a redfish in the donut, and donut and Clyboard.
Yep.
That was just a hair over, but I caught the trout and the flounder on the 52M chartreuse, the one Brian Dufek pulled out, and I go, what is this stupid color? And I caught them all on left bank.
Yeah.
And so and that was the day I told Roger Bump that he goes, what'd you catch those fish on? I said, I caught them on a plug. He goes, a plug? What are you talking about? I said, on this plug right here, and I showed it to him.
Yeah.
And he was just like, oh my God, dude, and so that was my first experience in a tournament. And then after that became, then Grady did the next one, which was the Jaguar one.
Yeah. So I sold the John boat, and I bought a 16-foot Hughes Lappy, had a 90 horsepower on it. So then we had the ability to have range. So Jamie and I are still kind of rolling, and I had learned to fish at 52M with my stepdad up in Murrells Inlet, South Carolina. We'd go trout fishing. But up there, the trout's not a year-round fishery. They run at certain times, and we would fish, and it was weird because we would go in the boat to a place called Goat Island, and everybody's anchored up, and they get out, and you're wade fishing off the island, casting out into the channel, and just slow working those things back, twitch, real slow, and get them down there and just getting big, nice bites. So we had the 52M, and we had the curly tail grub in our arsenal. And at that time, the top dog wasn't even around, So we went out on the VIP, and I think we caught 2 out of the 3. We couldn't get a limit,
I'm listening to you while I'm pulling up the names here.
And but Raymond won that.
Yeah.
Him and Mike, they won a boat.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell? This is kind of cool. You can go out here and win a boat, right?
Yeah, they won that. They won the Ranger. It was displayed over at Strike Zone on Beach Boulevard. Dave Workman had it up there. Dave was in tight with Ranger. And they did win that one. It was a 167 Cayman. It was a teal blue like the Jaguars. And so I'm looking at it right here. So they had 13.64, and that red they had was a freaking pig, which ate a 52M. 8.17. Then Perry Pennant, who fished with Larry Minyard, was another OG. I mean, we got to give it up to Larry Minyard. I mean, you don't talk about inshore without mentioning Larry. And then third place was Chip Davis.
Yeah, there you go.
I fished with Chris Powers.
Yeah.
Chris and I fished out on a stump knocker because you could trailer to the weigh-in.
Right.
And so we trailered to the weigh-in, and I had and we caught our redfish, 6.48 red late, and I caught the red and the flounder late on a live mullet. Yeah. Because you get it back then, it was still either or.
But what we saw back then is the guys throwing lures could pretty much hang with the live baiters, and that's what I learned in the triple challenge format. You're not going to necessarily want to post up and sit in one hole all day and wait for them, because that's fishing, and what we do is hunting.
Right, exactly.
You talk about Larry Minyard, for example. There's another outdoorsman. He can go shoot you 1,000-pound elk or call in a turkey. Yeah. Literally world champion surfer.
Oh yeah, he was it. Yeah, he
was world champion.
Larry Minyard is, like you said, when Larry and I were really, really good friends for a long time. Yeah. Like, he turned me on to the first time I ever had braid on my reel. Yeah. He showed me about tiger braid. Yeah. I was like, what are you throwing? Because I just can't. I'm not a spinning reel guy. But Larry was in there, and we weren't scared of the bait guys.
Yeah, but Larry, you look at a guy like that, and I think that they've just got a God-given gift. Yeah. They are so in tune with the outdoors and the rhythms of, tides and winds and currents.
And certain people, like Eddie's a dog.
Yeah, and then me and you, we're grinders.
Yeah,
so we go out and we learn it just by hard work, but it's never. I've never had.
It never comes easy. Yeah, never comes easy.
Like your Metcalf buddy comes in here, he can probably pick up any instrument and play it, because he's got a God-given gift. Yeah. Well, we worked at it. Yeah. So me and Jamie failed, and then another buddy of mine, Ted Berkstresser, who
love you, Ted.
Tournament Ted.
Tournament Ted.
He's like, hey man, you want to fish the general tournament? And I'm like, sure, why not? So we go out there, and Ted's a big bait guy. He's a Kingfish SKA champion. He's won at Kingfish tournaments, and he's a pretty badass dude. And he's like, first 2 hours of game day, we're out there trying to get the right friggin' mullet. And I'm like,
God.
We could be throwing lures right now. The bite might be on. But we went out to the big jetty rocks and just, Carolina rigged and bumped those mullet on the bottom, and he got a, like a decent trout. I don't know what the weight was.
So you ended up in sixth place. So you had a 7.22 red. Your trout weighed 2.45, which is respectable.
Decent.
and then you had a 2.93 flounder.
So he pops that trout, you know, at the jetty.
Right.
And that time I was not a good trout fisherman. I'm like, man, this is huge. We never catch trout.
Right.
And he got the flounder, and I'm like, well, let's run it back up the clapboard. And it's a place I called the Sea Hole. You got the donut. I got this place called the Sea Hole because it was just like C-shaped bank. And we pull in there with the Mirror 7M, and I think like my first or second cast, and we got that 7.22.
Yeah, that's a nice red on 7M.
And you know, and he's like, I can't believe you caught that on a lure. You know, he's back there in the live well trying to fish out a mullet, and I'm done hooked up, and like, get the net, brother.
I love it. And that's awesome.
Yeah, and you know, at the landing was the weigh-in, which is not there any longer. But we were down there until 9 at night waiting to get paid. Check. And so we got into the rum, and I mean, we're like buzzed, dude. And just high-fiving and you know, getting paid, and it was a decent payout. It was over $1,000, and I was hooked at that point. I'm like, this is what I want to do.
That was my first taste. That was my first top. Well, I had a 4th place in one in the year before in '96. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Then I got a 3rd place, and then my best friends Mike Phillips and Raymond won. Right. Pretty much on my spot. I turned them on the left bank. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, but they had the boat. Raymond was running that Action Craft. Remember the Action Craft? We had a 120 Evinrude on it. Mm-hmm. So he's running that Action Craft, and then and so they were able to haul ass to the spot, and you know, I mean, that's fishing, you know, first come first serve. I wanted to go there, but I put in at Mill Cove, and so Chris and I kind of kicked it around the islands, and then and if you ever go into Angie Subs, the one over there on Beach, you'll see Mike Phillips out there, and he's holding a double. He's got a 7-pound trout and 7-pound red. Yeah. They caught that pre-fishing on Friday. Yeah. So they knew where they were going. They were so jacked up, and like I told you, they couldn't get their flounder till late. Yeah. And they caught their flounder off the jetty. Yeah. Thank you there, Andrew. I love you. Just clean me up.
Yeah. So
thank you, bro.
Yeah. So you and Mike and Raymond, I mean, you were the ones everybody was looking up to, you know, when you come to the scales and you guys pull up, everybody stops and watches. So that back then, you know, there was a handful of guys. I think you guys were on a higher level.
And the thing about it is we weren't really that much higher. It's just we were turned on to a couple spots. That,
you were doing... And I think it comes back to doing a lot of lure fishing.
Yeah, we were throwing the lures, and like I said, that Rick turned me on to a couple spots in Cloudboard. Yeah, my buddy Rick, and he turned me on the left bank, and he turned me on the donut because I used to never want to leave Mill Cove. He's like, "Yeah, we're going to leave the cove." I'm like, well, "I don't want to leave the cove." He's like, "You got to leave the cove." And so the first time he took me to left bank, he had like an older, like a 17-foot, 16-foot boat, and you know what he did? The first thing we did, we got left bank. He throws out a 52M, starts trolling it. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy. I never even been there before. And he's trolling the 52M, and he goes, oh, there he is. And it was right before you went to the, you know, to the cut back there, right? Which is, you know, is James Howard's favorite hole. Yeah, he loved that spot. But anyhow, so we caught him, and then you know, so he taught me how to fish it. But you know, so then we move on to Ashton's tournament. So we get through Grady's. Grady's already done. I don't know if he did another triple for a while.
Well, he did that one. You remember?
And we got second. Me and Mike got second in.
Well, there was that one where Dufek and Jeff Dry came with that stupid bag, like 20 pounds or something.
They were the last ones to weigh in. But they won that one. They had like an 11-pound flounder. Yeah. Chris Cincy was leading the flounder division until Jeff Dry bumped him. But their line was all the way down Sisters Creek to the very back. Yeah. Me and I fished that one with Raymond, and we didn't do much, so we left early. Yeah. So then the one after that, I ended up hooking up with Mike Phillips, and we got second place, and the guy beat us at all 3 species on a float rig at Whiteshell. Oh, okay. And that was the first time Mike was throwing a spinnerbait.
Now that was Dustin Brown, I think.
Yeah, it was Dustin,
fishing by himself.
And actually, and this had to be later after Mike and I won the Redfish tournament because Mike was throwing a spinnerbait. Yeah. And so I got ahead of myself, but I never forget Mike threw that freaking spinnerbait in that grass. I go, "What are you doing, man? You idiot! You ain't gonna get nothing." I was like, we were down. Yeah. I was like, the bite's over for the trout. And he caught a 6.5-pound trout on a spinnerbait. Oh wow! Off the islands in Mill Cove. Yeah. You know, I call them Kayak Island because
that's what it is.
It's all kayaks in there. So anyhow, rewinding back to where I was at. So then after Grady, and then in comes Scott Ashton with the IFA.
Scott was Jim Hammond's cameraman and producer. So I shot a couple of shows with Jim and got to know Scott. Now, Scott, I don't know if you knew this or not, he was, on BASS tour.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I hung out. Yeah, he told me, that's why he was trying to idolize this tour, kind of like the BAS. Yeah.
So, you can look back, you flip a couple of pages back. The first one was won by Pat Stinson. Now, that was a 3-fish format. Oh, yeah. But you didn't have to have all 3. It was just total weight.
Look at the names in there, man.
Oh my God, that's when it was getting
Lonnie
real.
Pitts.
Yeah.
Scott Ludden, Bob Morris, Kirk Waltz, Mike Wingo, which was Chip Wingo's brother. Kevin Faber, Raymond McCauley in 21st, James Howard, Terry Lacoste, Elmer Hartley.
I mean, sick.
Jim Price.
Sick people.
I don't know where the hell I was at. So big trout award to Bob Morris for 6.21. What'd you catch that on? Float rig?
Float rig.
I remember. I was zeroed out. I go, you live baiter. I was like pissed off.
We ran all the way to Volano from Mayport.
So that was in 1998.
Yeah, 98.
Yeah, I jumped ahead of myself because I hadn't even partnered up with Roger Bump yet.
Yeah.
I was still fishing with Raymond.
Well, I was fishing with Ted at that time. And Ted, you know, there was not a falling out or anything, but I ended up getting hooked up with Wingo right around then.
Right. Yeah. Well, everybody was, you know, what's so funny is like everybody's switching partners.
Yeah.
It's like, you, and that's the thing about you and Jamie. You know, you and Jamie have been doing it for a long time.
Right.
And so do me a favor, Bob. Just pull that microphone down so I can see your face.
There you go.
No, pull it right here.
Okay.
Face. So can you see his face better like that? Was he good?
I'll just get my posture better.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine. No, and I hate to stop it like that, guys. Trust me, this is our first one. I think it's going super, super well. Yeah. But that was just, it was, I couldn't see. I had to see Bob. I looked at that face all day Saturday, man. All he told me was, this guy, we'll get into that later, but he put on a freaking clinic for the Reds, dude. I've never seen nothing like. I'm like I said, that'll be in part 3. But I'm looking through these weights, right? So this is April 5th, 1998.
Right.
Ben White. I kind of remember. I remember Ben. Larry Minyard, second place.
Yeah.
Kirk Waltz was 4th. Kevin Faber 6th. Frank Gregg was in 9th.
Yeah.
Roger Bunk was in 16th. I think that was when I teamed up with Roger.
Yeah.
And then it's just like,
I mean, that was the year before you guys went on your run,
right?
Which was like the epic run of all runs.
Yeah, we went on that run in 19,
oh my God,
1999 was like, you know, it was like we beat. Well, I think we beat everybody by like 19 pounds in Angler of the Year.
It was sick,
but it was like, you know, when you just come together with a partner, and Roger was working as a truck driver for Winn-Dixie, so he had a crazy schedule he could have off because I was still working my job at the hospital and there was no Tyler. I hadn't even gotten married yet.
Yep.
So when I did my shifts, Bob, I do work 3 off 1, work 3 off 7. So every other week I had 7 days off. What was I doing? I was on the water like a dog. I mean, I was out there every day. Back when I could stay all day. I didn't like, now it's like, we got to go. You know, you got responsibility. I would just jump in the boat, dude. I had no responsibility. I was living with Lynn Gaglione.
Okay, there you go.
I wasn't with Lynn. No, me and Mike Phillips were living together.
Oh, boy.
I know. That was crazy. But he was working as a roofer, so he could never get off. But I would come home from work on night shift and hook the boat up and go. I was like, I'm not going to bed. I don't work tonight. So going all the way through. So who ended up, I think Roger and I got really humbled. And we're like, so Angler of the Year that year was Rick Thacker.
Yeah, now there's somebody you can't talk about the history of Jacksonville without Rick Thacker, who was doing something totally different from everybody else with this deep water pattern.
2-time winner of the Flounder Pounder. He won it twice.
Dude was a monster.
I'm looking down here. So we hadn't even made our run. So I'm looking. So me and Bump ended up in 29th place, and we were like, this is. We had 14 pounds.
Well, that may not be at the year's end.
Oh, that was the standings. Okay,
okay,
I got you.
Yeah. Well, it could have been the year's end. You know.
Well, no, because we had to have more than that. But like you said, so. Who ended up winning the Angler of the Year? Was it? I think Rick Thacker won the Angler of the Year.
I think he did.
Because remember they did the parties like at that place right there off Southside Boulevard, that bar right there.
Yeah.
When he did the awards and all that, and Scott did a good job with it. I mean, it was still cutting edge at the time. And then came my favorite time in 1999. I call it the perfect storm, dude. That was when me and Roger just made it. We won the first tournament of the year. Get this. If I pull through it.
I don't think I've got that in there.
Oh, do you remember that one?
Well, that was when you guys, there were like 5 or 6, 6 or 7 pound trout.
The first tournament was in April.
Yeah.
And it was on a full moon.
No, it was March. It was freezing.
It was March, but it was still good.
Yeah.
And Jeff Dry and Brian Dufek got second. Mike Phillips got third, and me and Roger. Yeah, that was first, second, third. Yeah, and Roger and I and we anchored it with an 8.5 pound trout.
Yeah.
That we showed up at the bridge, right? Mike Phillips and forever will kill himself for this. So we were always like, "What do you got? What do you got?" So we pull up and we, Roger had that little. Remember the little boat?
The skimmer.
This Eagle skimmer. You get soaking wet but it had a tunnel, and he would turn that tunnel, and the boat would rise up at shallow water. And so we get up next to Mike Phillips. I go, "What do you got? What do you got?" He goes, "What do you got, man?" I go, "We got about 13." He goes, "Well, I got you beat." And I looked at Roger, and he just like, he had this look on his face. "What do you mean?" He goes, "I go, we got 15." And I looked at Roger, and I said, "Let's go, man. Let's go to that spot where you had that big trout pre-fishing.
Yeah.
We went right around to that jetty, right there coming in the middle of the cove on the right.
Yeah.
And you know what he threw? First cast, he threw a 72M Green Demon.
Oh boy.
And caught an 8.5 pound trout, dude. It went boom. And I said, I go, what is it? A jack? Is it a jack? He goes, I don't think, man. I think, and all of a sudden it just started running. And it came up to the surface. It's like,
yeah.
And I reached, so we got the fish, went back to Mill Cove and found Mike Phillips. I go, we're winning now, bitch. I was like, we got you now. And then, so we ended up weighing in, and Jeff Dry and Brian had second, and we took first, and then the rest was history. We made a run, and we won the Angler of the Year. That was the year that I caught that trout.
Yeah, like 3 in the afternoon or something
trout,
stupid.
Yeah, here it is right here. I caught it. Yeah, it was 100 freaking degrees, and if Roger and I did like a top 5, then we would win the Angler of the Year. Points wise, we were like 17. I mean, look at this old picture right here, dude. I mean, this is there. That was like Rick Riles was our MC. That was when we won it. And then here is, I think I got a picture of that trout. Oh, there's that trout. I'm holding the trout to Rick Riles. Look at Rick Riles right there. Yeah. That
wow. Yeah.
That was our slam. We got, who won that one? Rick Thacker. You got a 9-pound flounder at the Buckman Bridge.
Yeah, and that was down at the old fish camp.
Yeah, that was the old fish camp. I talked to Paul today about that owns PBO.
Yeah.
And Paul Rohan. I said, hey, I got some pictures of the old fish camp. Look, that's where they don't even have the pavers. That's where all the pavers are.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyhow, so Roger and I ended up winning that one, and then we had the big breakup.
Yeah, well,
that's what happens. You go through breakups and partners, and then me and Mike Phillips teamed up.
Right.
And then me and Mike Phillips made a run, and we won the inaugural Redfish Tour Championship.
Yep. Yeah.
So we got in. I know people think it was controversial how we got in. We got in because we got third, but Grady made the rules up as he went.
Yeah.
But he said if you qualified a top 3 in his triple challenges, you could get in because we didn't qualify for the Redfish.
Right.
Fishing the tour. So Mike and I slipped in. It was a 3-day tournament. C.A. Richardson was in it. The Watts brothers, Tony Pizzella.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all the heaviest of the heavy hitters. I think it was 85 boats.
Well, what it was is, you remember,
it was 3-day tournament.
It was a 3-day tournament. So on the third day, they took the top 5 out.
Yeah, and they put us all in 191.
Yeah.
And you ended up winning that same boat.
Yeah.
When you went to when actually we'll talk about that too.
Yeah.
So Mike and I ended up winning the 2000 inaugural Redfish Tour Championship that was held in Jacksonville. Ran by the man, the myth, the legend, Grady Warren.
Yeah.
None of us would even be sitting here, and none of this would even be possible without Grady Warren's influence on me. And when I say influence on me, he influenced me a lot as a tournament angler because he used to give me a lot of good advice. Remember he always smoked his weed out of that can.
Yeah.
I mean, but when I won our tournament, our championship that year, there was probably 14 people in there, and I always thought to myself, I want to be a tournament director one day, but when you win my tournament, you're going to get the juice. And that's what we call it, the juice. And so that's how I kind of built my flounder pounder. I was like, when you win my tournament, I want people to understand and live that and feel. Yeah. Because I felt like I got robbed. I mean, it was my biggest tournament of my life.
Sure.
And there was 14 people there. It was still in the grassy area. It was at Beach Boulevard. It's now all paved. Mm-hmm. And it was no disrespect to Grady, but he had brought all this together. They brought them Ranger 191s up here. Mm-hmm. And it was the greatest, biggest payday of my life as far as fishing, but I just didn't get the juice.
Well, and that's a shame because he did such a superior job. I mean, you picked up on it, but when you would go up to the weigh-in with Grady, he would genuinely know you. How did your day go?
I'm telling you, man, he was my biggest inspiration.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what I tell people. I'm not just a tournament director. I'm the front man.
Right.
And Grady wore the big dial. I tried to emulate that hat. He had that straw dial hat on. He wore that big straw hat. There he is, right there. There's a good picture of him. Yeah. He's a man, dude. Yeah. And so those who don't know, Grady Warren passed away back. I've lost a lot of friends to cancer, but Grady in the past. But he left his mark on me not only by what he created with his tournaments, but also how he was as a director. Yeah. And I always thought to myself, I look at some of these tournaments and I'm like, y'all are missing you need an MC. You need someone else. Even with you, Bob. I mean, even though you wait, even when I call up your name, dude. When I'm sitting there and I look at the names I'm calling it for my tournament, and I see them, I can just start thinking about it. I was like, well, these guys have been doing it. And I'll never forget the time you knocked Eddie Cavalier out of first place. I mean, he's probably listening, but that was in 2013. Yeah. And Eddie Cavalier was leading the aggregate all day, bro. I mean, he sat up there and went through everybody weighing in. And I look and I see, and I went on there, I go, oh shit. and I see you and Suki coming in.
Right.
You know, you and Suki, because you guys got in because of check-in boat, and you know, I miss Mobby. I miss a lot of things about a lot of places. You know, but it's always gonna be history. It's laden around me. I mean, it's all around me. Yeah. And I remember standing over and I was looking. I looked at Eddie, and he's with his brother DJ, and they're sitting at the table. They were up close, and I said, "You better watch this one guy. You better watch this guy." And you know, remember, you had to come up the gangway right there. Yeah. And you got the sack, you know, and I'm waiting on Bob, and you know, so the last boat to weigh in. You were the last boat to weigh. Yeah. And you and Suki walked up, and I think your bag was hidden because you always had a cool bag or something. And we laid them out, dude, and you won the freaking aggregate. And I looked over at Eddie, and it was like, you remember the ABC Wild World of Sports and the agony of defeat? Remember the guy coming down on the ski?
Oh, yeah.
Getting slapped up, you know, and I looked over at Eddie, because he's just sitting there waiting all day, dude. And then it took him 11 years to win my tournament.
But he got it.
He got it, man. And you know what? He won it by himself. And, you know, I mean, you see that board right there, dude. I mean, there's some heavy hitters on there, but Eddie never quit. And he came back and won it that year when the bite was just stupid. I mean, they were stacked up downtown 3 years ago. And Eddie and I remember it was overcast. I walk outside, you know, I'm an angler, tournament angler by heart, right? Mm-hmm. I feel the conditions. I'm like, oh shit, there's a bite.
Yeah, there's gonna be.
You know, and next thing I get this phone, I see Eddie FaceTime. I'm like, oh shit. It's like, hey, I'm getting my shit ready to go to PBO.
Right.
You know, making sure I don't forget nothing. And I go, what's up? And he goes, man, I got her. I say, well. And then I go, and I don't want to say the spot. I'm like, I'm not even caring about the fish. I'm like, are you fishing that place? Because I can see it in the background of his phone call. Yeah. And he goes, man, don't be saying nothing about that spot. I was like, I've been looking at that spot my whole life. But he had popped a 9-pound fish, dude. And it inhaled it looked like a cobia flare jig with like a 6-inch fish bite. I mean, big fish, big, you know, and at that time, everybody was going to weigh in. It might have been the most boats I ever had weighed in but you were going to have that kicker fish.
Yeah.
So he ended up with 15 pounds and some change. And then the following year, Andrew won it with 15. And then this year was my most challenging year because I got challenged by the weather. Mm-hmm. And the guys that won it this year said they've been trying to win my tournament for 10 years. So, and you know, and I'll tell people right now, I just need a year off. Am I done? I'm not going to say I'm done. I got a lot of stuff going on in 2026 with some stuff I'm doing, but I just want to break. You know, I just want to go. I did it for 16. You know what? I never hiccuped, Bob, in 16 years. Yeah. I never ever sat back and said I didn't do it the right way. Mm-hmm. I set the bar so high that sometimes achieving that bar can be really hard on you.
Sure.
I mean, it can eat you. I mean, the weather this year really took it challenged me internally. Like, this ain't gonna pull off, man. I'm not gonna pull this off.
Yeah.
And so I mean, getting back to that is, I really do love the triple challenge format.
Yeah, I can't wait to catch that one this year.
Yeah, I mean, I got to get on the horse and get on that one. But I mean, I feel like that one's. I'm trying to make that more like an angler's tournament, versus being a big fundraiser like the Flounder Pounder. The Flounder Pounder has always been known that Chip Davis raised $1.5 million to the Jacksonville School for Autism.
Right.
The Triple Challenge will be known as, you want to win this is going to be angler driven.
Right.
And that's why I kind of want to just leave it at 100 boats. I mean, I had 98 boats last year, and you look at the weights, and the weights were all delegated by the weather.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a south wind come in like 20 knots while the bite. I could feel the bite was over by 10 in the morning because, I mean, the wind started howling 20 out of the south. And even I thought you were going to fish with your wife. You called me because I think you bailed on going to see Nahatchee. Because you were asking if there was any spots, though, because I was pubbing it as like I only wanted 100 boats in it.
I'll be honest, and I feel like I probably looked at the weather and said, my wife's a very good tournament angler, but she's a fair weather fisher.
And it got nasty, dude, because Karen and Jacob won that. They won in Fernandina. They were in Fernandina. So he's got that one. He's got that egret. Yeah. And so they turned and burned, man. I mean, that's came.
That's what you got to do. Yeah.
I mean, they made the run. I mean, they were on some fish. And I talked to Jacob last night. He zeroed in the FLA. But I was like, hey, man, it's easy to get humbled. Mm-hmm. But I said, you know what happens when you zero in a tournament? It doesn't go away till you fish that next one.
Right.
You carry that shit around till the next tournament, man. I know how it is, Bob. Like, you don't feel good until you get back on the boat and you get back on that tournament and you forget about the one you just. Now, if you double zero the next one, now you're going to have a hard pill to swallow. Yeah. But you have a chance to better yourself in the next one.
Well, if we want to go back and talk about, Scott Ashton, one thing Scott did when he was running his tournaments is he's the one who started the Wednesday night tournaments that we still do to this day. So he's like, these guys, he wanted to just promote his tour and have something midweek. So we would run and jump around different ramps. I think it was like a $50 buy-in. And he'd get 20, 25 boats. And so he started the Wednesday nighters.
Which Walt and Chris are doing a great job with.
Yeah, they sure are. They picked it up. And then after that, there was a guy named Fred Gray. I don't know if you know Fred.
Fred.
Now, Fred, you know, great guy, great fisherman. He's like, we want to do like a Saturday morning in Calcutta. And they were running him out of Oak Harbor. And so he would start getting a little bit of boats. And then he's like, man, why don't we try to do something else? So he got with Carl Hardy, and they started the Florida Lure Anglers.
I remember.
And I was one of the founders of that. And that was, I can't remember what year it was. It was a long time ago.
2004 or something like that, maybe 2005.
And so that all sprung from Scott Ashton's,
right.
you know, Wednesday nighter, to be honest. And, you know, and the FLA was really, to me, I'm most proud when I do good in the club because it's the most pure challenge.
Well, see, that to me right there with you saying that, Bob, that just kind of resonated because I just got a third with you, dude. And I mean, yeah, people say we're field stacked with me and you, but no, we're fishing just like the rest of them.
Yeah.
But you're right, dude. I always tell people whenever I stock on Redfish tour pages, you know, I always look for the FLA guys, and they're always right there, dude. They're always right because you guys challenge yourselves in different formats, and you challenge yourself with artificial. I always tell people it's hard for me to sit up here and tell you I'm going to run a triple challenge and make it artificial only. That you're going to fish for $2,500 because I can't get 100 boats. But it's hard for guys to swallow that. They're like, well, we don't want to fish against bait. I'm like, whether you want to fish for $2,500 or you want to fish for $10,000 because I got to have at least 75 paid boats.
Well, let me give you a little tip for all you guys out there. I can guarantee you that you can outfish.
Well, I can
guarantee it.
I don't know if anybody saw the video I did the other morning of Bob's trophy room, man. But I mean, this guy's got so much stuff on the wall, man. He's starting a hole. I mean, that was a real honor to see that too, dude. Because I mean, my trophy wall, it really consists of my posters.
Yeah.
But that wall, and I tell you who else, I mean, and somebody I really want to get on the show, dude. I got to get Eddie on here, man.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to get him in the third seat over there. It's going to be, I want to do part 3 and Eddie Kabler chime in at the end, coming in on part 3. Because I feel like, you know, it's going to be a 3-part story because we're really going to touch on, we're not even going to go into like 12 and 20 and all that because there's a lot of history of that. We're still kind of hanging around between 2005 back. You know, we're ping-ponging.
Well, what I see with Eddie, I've shared the boat with him a couple of times. And there again, like I said earlier, when you get with a guy and he says, we're going to go here and this is going to happen. And it happened all day with him both times. But that dude, if you want to put the word grinder in the dictionary, you put his face beside it. Because we're out there for like on game day, you know, we ran from Volano to fish the river. It was a FLA tournament. And the dude didn't sit down. He didn't have a drink. He didn't have a sandwich. He just rolled. And I mean, he's like, I want to go faster. And he really wants to burn. Did
you ever hear the story when me and him got third place in the Creek Wars? Did you hear that story? So Eddie and I, we were fishing out of his 14 Kona skiff. They had a 30 Tohatsu. That's when I first met Eddie.
Right.
And Eddie was still into the sport, right?
Yeah.
So so he's good. And I said, dude, we can win this thing, right? And it was the bite was tough. This dude is out there throwing 4-pound tests.
Right, I remember hearing
about
this.
And he popped off this 5-pound flounder, man. I went to put the net down, and this thing was in Broward, dude. It went. I go, how much? What size line are you using? He goes, I think it was either 4. I said, dude, come on, bro. You cannot do this shit in a tournament.
Yeah.
So we ended up getting all 3, and then Eddie says, you think we should run because the weigh-in was at Beach Boulevard? And he goes, I said, listen, let me tell you something, dude. I've been doing this tournament fishing for a long time. If we're struggling, everybody's struggling.
Yep.
And we weighed in, and Eddie's like, you sure? I said, dude, let's make the run. And I remember getting there. Lenny had 2 Double Crown and Coke, so because we pulled up. And the Creek Wars was a great tournament.
Oh, that was a good one. Yeah.
I mean, but there once again, you see, if you don't have the people to help you do it, it just kind of goes away. I mean, that's why I said to be able to sit up here and tell you I've done my tournament for 16 straight years by myself, pretty much. I mean, the school helps me with the money side of it and all that. I'm talking about doing it by myself and building it, promoting it, running it, having the great volunteers. It ain't easy to keep a tournament running. No. But the Creek Wars was a great one, and it was Kurt and those guys, Amanda's dad.
Yep.
And we got out there and we got third place. And I remember I got a picture and we're holding the money and we won $750 at third place. And I looked at Eddie, I said, you always weigh in.
Yeah.
I mean, even especially if you know, now you don't weigh in a 3 or 4 pound sack, but when I know the bite was that struggle, and all we needed was that flounder, Bob.
Yeah.
If that flounder, we'd have gotten that flounder, and we'd have like 15 pounds. We'd have blown the field away. But Eddie was just running around out there with a 4-pound test. Like, you got to stop with that shit, dude. So that was my one tournament fish with Eddie, was in that one, and that was a good one because we, like you said, we grinded all day, dude.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
I mean, just, and like you said, when that's how he is when he fishes a tournament. That's how he is. Like, when he fishes out of my boat, I take the trunk. Yeah. Because he kind of, like Eddie, like with you and I can feel it, but with Eddie's up there on the front of the boat and he's fishing, I feel like if I'm running the boat, I feel pressured.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like, I feel like he wants to run a boat differently, and he can do it and, you know, fish well. But then again, I don't mind being in the trunk. I fished the trunk the majority of the day with you. I was like, dude, back of the boat is where I love to be, but you have to be able to run the trolling motor.
Yeah.
You cannot keep me 40 yards off the bank. And then, you know, when they're like, just because you think everything comes from the front of the boat. Yeah. So some guys always think that everything comes from the front of the boat, and they're just casting over you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't.
I mean, if you get the good chemistry, like, you know, Jamie and I have a great chemistry just because we're best buddies, you know. But he and I on the boat are oftentimes kind of clones, you know. Yeah. We're both doing the same thing. Where when I started fishing with Chuck Dellinger, you know, had a long run, one angler.
Oh, yeah, you and Chuck dominated, yeah.
Yeah, Chuck is...
he's another great angler.
You know, this will be, you know, I'm going to backtrack and then come back, but... You remember the Rick's Redfish Tour?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So Rick's Bait and Tackle Redfish Tour. Who wouldn't forget that one? That was a good one too, man.
So me and Suki, Greg Suki, who's a great friend and another tremendous. I've been blessed to just fish partners. With the good partners. Yeah. You know, I'm not going to claim like I'm. And everybody's like, oh, you know, your name's, I'm the captain. That's just because I wrote the check.
Yeah,
you know,
that gets lost in the shuffle, dude. It's like a team. We know who, you know.
Yeah. So me and Suki had made a pretty good run, and I think we had. You know, we're high in the standings after the series, and the championship came, and he was going to be going to Vegas to some poker tournament.
So that's when he was gambling. Yeah. I mean, not gambling. He loved cards. He's like, you want to come over and play cards?
Yeah.
I was like,
so he fished day one with me, and we were in the hunt, you know. So I had met Chuck through Wednesday night or something, and I'm like, well, can you fill in on Sunday, on day two? And he's like, sure. And I mean, dude, let me tell you, it was like friggin' 35 or 40 degrees, and homeboy comes rolling down a pair of shorts and flip-flops. I'm like, you're going to freeze your ass off, kid. And he's younger than me, and we went in the back of Mill Cove, and it was almost like me and you the other day. I'm like, he loved topwater, and he didn't, and it was blowing out of the north, you know, 25 miles an hour.
You can fish that back grass line on the north wind.
White capping though, and I'm up in the grass.
Yeah. And that's a whole new meaning after this weekend.
He's catching them, but then again, I yoked like 3 or 4 out of the grass, and they're studs. And we went back to the weigh-in. We come in second. You know, some other guys won, but that was how my first tournament with Chuck.
Yeah, and so you guys, you immediately knew. Like I had the same with Bump. Bump and I had a good run. Mike Phillips and I could do it. Raymond and I could fish together. You and I fished together.
Yeah.
Eddie and I fished together. This whole thing about joining up and fishing with people, I don't do it, dude. Yeah. You know, everybody's like, let's get together, let's fish. You know, it's like, man, I can tell immediately the first 5 minutes you're in my boat whether you're ever going to fish with me ever again.
But the thing with Chuck is that, you know, when he and I fish, he's doing one thing, I'm doing something totally opposite. So when we had our good runs in the fish club, you know, he does not throw soft plastics. He wants to throw hard baits.
I don't even own a spinning rod.
And he's like, and I'll sit on the back with the jig, and I'm catching like 15 or 20 fish, but he would pop our big one.
Yeah.
You know, so it was just good. I would make sure, because, you know, like in the club, like I said the other day, I'm like, we got to get a limit. First and foremost, because I'm in here for points.
You reiterated that to me all the way through. You're like, as soon as I got that trout and we got our 4, you go, there you go. I go, well, that's what you said all week. It's like, we got to get our limit. And we did. So, you get your limit, then you can start culling. If you sit on one spot and you're waiting to catch that big fish and you miss the bite for the redfish, or you might miss it for the flounder, you better take what you can get, and you got to move on, and you got to circle back around, and we got to try to upgrade.
So that was, you know, what we learned. But those early days, it was just, you know, and then, you know, you get back to 2000. Well, the Redfish Tour starts. So I remember Grady. I had done T-shirts for him because I was T-shirt guy, T-shirt Bob. So he's like, you know, you need to come do this tournament. Because he knew I'd done the triple challenge and won some money. And so me and Wingo teamed up. And he's, you know, Grady being Grady, he had, you know, finagled Ranger in to sponsor it. Originally, he was talking about doing trout redfish format, and everybody talked him out of it because the trout was going to die.
Yeah, I remember he talked about that too.
Yeah. And so he brought it in, and he's on the phone. He's calling, the who's who, tarpon guides, Rick Murphy's. He's trying to bring people from all over, and they all came up, and that was the one Romika won.
Do you remember what happened? You remember at the captain's meeting what we talked about the other night?
This
will be a good one for you guys out there. The time John Oliveira debuted at the first power pole.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it was the very first power, which now is a multi-million-dollar company, and good for John because he's a class act.
Yeah.
But I remember at the captain's meeting because he had it at Sisters Creek. We did it right there out of the new one, Jim King's or whatever. And I remember everybody always had their own little pods of people you go to. And then I remember John Oliveira was there, and he had a Maverick HPX, the Watts brothers. They had that first shallow water anchor. Now look at it.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Isn't that nuts?
But me and Wingo fished that. We went back in clapboard, as a lot of us did, and literally, the top dog had just come out like a year or two before, Mirror Top Dog, and so we threw that fucker all day long, and we had multiple
opportunities,
and just nothing was sticking. And we just went home. It was one of the first zeros I ever posted.
Yeah.
Because I pride myself on being consistent,
Me and Mike Phillips fished that one because that was in 2000. And Mike was throwing, remember I told you he was throwing a hobo spoon?
Right.
For those that don't know, the hobo spoon is an elongated spoon where the head was bigger than the bottom, but it had a feather. And Mike was throwing, but Mike was always like, I don't need to sharpen the hook, blah, blah, blah. Well, as soon as we get in Mill Cove, it was flood tide that morning. Mike throws that hobo spoon and just like you did, dude. I mean, just deep as I've ever seen a lure go into the grass and just doubled up. And I go, come on, get him in. And he gets all the way to the boat and he comes off. And I went, that's because your stupid ass hook wasn't sharp, Mike. You're so unprepared, man. I started going off. I was like, you and your bullshit hooks, you don't tie your okay. So then I caught one on Top Dog. Yeah. Right in this little bay right there going, and he hit, and I mean, he clobbered it. But we ended up getting 4th place, but we'd have won it if he did. I mean, I think we could have won it if we'd have gotten that fish that came off. I was staring at it with the net, and it just came off. Yeah. Just come off.
But that was the beginning of, everything that's happened all sprung from that triple challenge.
Yeah, it all started from exactly. There was no tournaments prior to that. Yeah. I don't even know. The only other tournament that I kind of knew about, but it was the Flounder Pounder, and it was the 30-day tournament that ran out of B&M. And it was put on by Rozo and the taxidermist. And you had 30 days to weigh in. And they call it the Flounder Pounder. Yeah. Ray Thomas. Mm-hmm. But other than that, there was not. I mean, there wasn't. I don't even know if the Sheephead tournament was around. Now the Kingfish tournament was rocking. That's when they had 1,000. Yeah, they had 1,000 boats in it. So I was fishing that with Raymond McCauley. But there was no true inshore tournaments prior to Grady Warren, which I don't know where he got that or however it came about. I wish I was here today to talk to him about it because I don't know where it came from. But he came up with that format, which absolutely blew me away, man.
Well, they were doing those formats in the Keys.
Right.
The slam format, of course,
Super
down there,
slam.
It's a permit and tarpon and bonefish.
Right.
And he's like, well, the North Florida slam is going to be the redfish, trout, and flounder.
Florida slam, dude. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah. I mean, and so
that's awesome, man.
But everybody owes a debt of gratitude to him, myself in particular, because he gave me the opportunity to write for the magazine. Those magazines you got over there, I've got articles and all those. And
y'all don't know that Bob, we call him the Flip Pallet of Northeast Florida. This guy is an amazing blog. I mean, he can write blogs or whatever. But yeah, you have a really. Did you do English comp and all that?
No. But what I had is I was out there, and that's what he wanted. He's like, I want somebody to write about the tournaments that's fishing them.
Right.
Because you're out there, how it is.
And that's why I think people love 50 that's why people love your blogs, because it's coming from somebody that's not writing it and didn't really experience it, versus you were like when you gave that tournament one that you wrote about us. That was just, I mean, I enjoyed that that was it was enjoying. And that's like guys like Walt and all the guys, the new members in FLA is like, bring back the blogs, man. Bring back the blogs, Bob. So you definitely are really, really good at it.
Well, I enjoyed it. But the cool thing is, so when you're interviewing the winners,
right?
I'm not writing everything they're telling me, right. So I got, in the Watts brothers, telling me stuff. I've got Ray Van Horns, all the guys.
Rick Murphy was coming up here.
Yeah, these guys, and I'm interviewing them, and I'm writing.
You remember Artie Price?
Oh my God.
He'd run 80 miles an hour, man. He told me, I don't run boats that have computer chips because I blow the motors. Yeah. He would have did it anyhow. So he was one of the boys that came over. He dominated up here in North Florida.
Yeah. Well, one of my biggest regrets in life is that my stepdad didn't live long enough. You know, the cancer took him when he was in his 60s. But it could have been like Artie and Arthur, or Terry and TD, or Chris and
Holman.
Frank.
Yeah, Chris Holman and his dad, Frank, man. I mean, those guys were shit. Well, what about that one tournament came around when they gave away the boat? Remember, it was the
that was the Governor's Cup.
The Governor's Cup. Me and Roger got third now.
I got fourth in that one. you beat me, goddammit.
And Chris Holman won a boat one time and they didn't give it to him. Remember, he was going to take him to court and sue him.
I think Bro Meekin and Grady got second in that one.
Oh yeah, because Grady Warren's signing. When I'm signing our check, me and Roger were bumping right there. You can see Grady's in front of us. Yeah. So Grady got third. I think me and Roger got fourth. You might have got a fifth.
Yeah, I mean I was up there.
Anyhow, but that was a Governor's Cup. That was a cool little thing.
That was a good thing.
But I got one story I want to kind of share about because Bob. This is still in the early 2000s. Because Bob Morris is one of the first ones that's ever, and we're going to give about another 10 minutes or so, and we'll wrap it up. Because my boys over here are working killer hard. But and once again, thank you, Andrew and Kenny. The story with Chip Wingo.
Come on,
but I mean, it's not a bad story. So those that don't know, I think we just finished the championship for the IFA.
Well, it was the Scott Ashton tour, and Chip and I.
It was a championship.
You know, here's a story I'm going to tell, and we got enough time to run it.
Yeah.
So back then, what me and Wingo did, Wingo had grown up fishing down in the river in Mandarin, Orange Park area. So he had some experience, but he's just like the best guy in the world. You know, I love Wingo.
Right.
So we would go out, and there's no Google Earth. At that time, there's no standard mapping. All there was the NOAA chart of the St. Johns River.
You can buy at Strike Zone.
Yeah, it's like this big, you know.
Exactly.
Oops, sorry.
That's all right.
And so I would go literally cover my eyes, drop my finger, and we're going to go there tomorrow and learn it. And we would go, I mean, there's no GPS. It's the depth finder in the boat.
Knowledge.
And you would just go in and we would start at dead low tide and just ride the tide up.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I've written this not long ago. I'm like, back then you did not need to leave Mill Cove, Clapboard, Broward, or Dunn's. That was where it was. The epicenter of North Florida fishing was in that area.
How much money you won out of the Cove?
I don't know.
I know. I won a bunch of money out of there too. Well.
Yeah. And so me and Wingo, and we had a pretty good run, but I was never the guy. I don't go out there and say, I got to win. I'm like, I want to be, I would call it, you know, I learned it more when my son was in school, in the 90th percentile. I'm like, I want to earn an A for the day. So if there's 100 boats, I want to make the top 10.
And you've always been like that. And that's what kind of sets you apart, because as being somebody that's watching what you've done, like you've always, consistency shows how good you are. If you're a one-hit wonder and you win one tournament and you don't show up again for the next 10 tournaments, then you got lucky. But whenever I look at the Redfish, you know, anytime they're here, I always look for, I see Bob Morris in there. I see Jimmy Pache. I mean, I see guys, you know, that are just consistency is, that's why Angler of the Year is really a big award, really, because, well, you know, Angler of the Year in the FLA, I didn't realize how, you know, a lot of guys wanted to win that, dude. It's very prestigious to win the FLA. And big shout out to Walt and Chris. They won it last year.
Well, them guys are grinders. Like I'm saying, nobody's handing them anything. They went out last year, 2 boats, 2 guys, a lot of pre-fishing, and I was, you know, respect.
Yeah,
you know, because they've come hard and they've been close before.
Where are the stand? Are you leading it right now?
Well, it depends on, you know, the way the FLA
Phil
works.
does the points.
Yeah, well, no, you do. You get to drop your worst result of the year. So after 3 tournaments, if you drop my worst result, we're tied for second. But if you counted all 3, I think I'm barely in first.
Well, and real quick to the guys that are listening, like I said, guys, this will be the last time we Facebook Live from here on out, only because. But there's still time, and if anybody that wants to join a club that's going to make you a better angler.
Oh, yeah.
And I believe that the Tennessee Club has come to Dick's Wings for the meetings.
Yeah, much better.
It used to be, it was such a, you know, you could get that, like going to the tournament captain's meetings, you had the shirts over here. You had the guys that don't have the tournament shirts, you know, but now the camaraderie for this club is infectious. You know, I mean, I hate to use that again, but it's kind of like, so if you do want to join and be a part of it, you guys can come to Dick's Wings. I think it's the 3rd Saturday of November, or the 3rd Monday. I meant the 3rd Monday. Yeah. Yeah, it'll be the 3rd Monday coming up, and you can come to the meeting. You can meet the guys. There's still time to join. But if you don't do it this year and you just now get into the inshore scene and you want to better yourself as an angler and meet some really cool guys, and you're starting to get some really good speakers too.
Oh, yeah. And plus the venue. I mean, not to
blow
your head up, but the wings are awesome,
and the staff.
The beer's cold. The staff is very
and big
helpful.
shout out to Phil that came up with the new with the turtle microphone and having the guy from Palomar or whatever that was just speaking.
Promar,
and what I want to get with, and I'm sure a lot of guys will agree, I want to get someone to come in there and teach me how to use my Simrad.
Oh, that would be great.
You know what I mean? I don't care about going offshore and logging all that. I want to go in and tell me all the shit that I don't know how to use on my Go 12 Simrad. Yeah. I think that would be good, but you guys had to put the guy from the FLA tracks, the Florida tracks, come in and
marine tracks. Yeah,
but well, guys, listen to this. It's
we got to finish up with Wingo.
Go ahead. You
started.
I'm gonna finish. No. Yeah, let's finish. We're gonna finish this story up with Wingo, and then we're gonna sign it off until part 2 next week. Go ahead.
So me and Wingo are like brothers from another mother, and just having fun.
One of the best stories ever.
But Wingo was a bartender down at First Street Grill down at the beach. He go in there.
He pulled a hell of a fucking crown drink.
He could make some money, and he's like, Bob. He's like, we had gone out in the championship of the IFT, and we were fishing in the river down the spot we used to call the Wall. It's a rock jetty, submerged jetty, and we had lost like 2 big ass trout that just got us down the rocks and bust us off. And he's like, God damn it! He's like, I can't keep doing this. He's like, I could have made $300 or $400 last night, and we're out here and spending money. We're not winning anything. And I'm like, well, dang, we came in 4th place. I was pretty stoked,
Oh, I remember it vividly. I was standing right next to him. He's all pissed off. He's like, I said, I quit.
And so it was within like 2 or 3 weeks, the IFA was going for their first ever tournament in Louisiana, in Lafitte, Louisiana. So I got my neighbor Danny Hoy. I'm like, you want to roll out here with me? He'd never fished an inshore tournament in his life. He's like, yeah, I'll go. So we went out there and we ended up winning.
A 191 came. You went a 191 came, and I mean that's a $60,000-$70,000 boat.
It was literally the weekend of 9/11.
Yeah,
the Twin Towers had fallen, and Grady's like, "We're Americans. We're not canceling this. Right. We're gonna go."
I remember that. And I remember looking at the leader like Bob Morrison pulled this shit off.
Yeah,
Wingo told him he quit. Yeah. Bob went a boat.
It was just.
Did you split the money with Matt? I mean, Jason, who was he went over there with?
Oh, yeah, I give him. He's like, man, I went to Hawaii on that money because he's a surfer. He's like,
right.
But I'll never forget Danny Hoy. We ended up getting, we had the Mike Phillips Terminator inline. Had just come out, and he gave me some prototypes, and we went and we caught one of our fish on that, and we caught the other one on soft plastic. But
it was a one-day tournament.
Yeah, we got
for
lost.
The boat.
Yeah, we got lost in the marsh.
Oh, my God.
And just every little, they call them turnas, but it's a little tiny creek mouth. Every one of those creeks had like 10 or 15 fish in the mouth. And we were like, we caught them up. And I told Danny on the drive out, I'm like, these local guys aren't used to fishing for a 27-inch fish. So we kind of got a little advantage.
Was it 28? It's 28 over there,
27 for the IFA.
Oh, 20, okay. Yeah. Oh, so he bumped it down.
He bumped it down.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
And so I cashed a few more checks out there. But after that, then locals got it tuned in. And they knew to go to those ponds and catch the big fat fish that were short and fat. But I remember Danny, he got so drunk at the captain's meeting. We went back to the hotel, and I went in there and took a shower. I came back out, and he's just laying on the bed like this with a trophy and a smile on his face, passed out.
Dude, man, I mean, like I said, this is bringing back such great memories, Bob. Like I said, I faded out after, once I just didn't have the means to go traveling. And I always told people, if you went on the road, that kind of makes you, because they'll call you a one-hit wonder if you just win in your backyard. I never went out on the road and won. Now, Roger went down there and won in Punta Gorda. Yep. I mean, like I said, we can sit here and talk. I mean, a lot of people, well, the guy's part of the history. Okay, so I got to give credit where credit's due. Roger Bunt was an innovator, dude. That guy, even though he came up with that spinnerbait, he took a snagless Sally with a Dremel and trimmed it down, and that's why we started getting them reds on a spinnerbait, but it wasn't weedless. But and he made it, and I mean, so but we're gonna touch more on that. Bob, you gonna come back for part 2?
Oh, absolutely. We'll talk about the early days of the IFA.
I mean,
I kind of stepped out like you did.
Yeah, well,
because you got business and wife and kids, and things happen.
I want to thank a couple people real quick before we take it all there, because like I said, this is a 3-part one, man. I guarantee this part 2 is going to be just as good as part 1. Bob Morris is an exceptional speaker, great historian. Big shout out to my buddy Jordy Hernandez. Lost his dog today, but he's the owner of Your Epic Vibes. Number 2, big shout out to my boys at Miggy's. Guys, I didn't wear my Miggy's. I'm trying to make this one a little bit less thing, but I had that look, and I was wearing my Miggy's before. But those guys are great. But we'll be back. Bob, we'll talk about a date. Big shout out to my boy Andrew over here.
Absolutely.
Killed it. He felt the stress because we didn't realize it. But I tell you right now, you cannot produce a podcast without Kenny and Andrew. And I love these guys to death. And Andrew's the man. He's behind the scenes working hard. It's gonna make it easy for us, Bob. But we're gonna sign it off. And I appreciate you, Kenny, doing the Facebook Live. You guys tune in. I'll drop a date, probably maybe latter part next week. We can do part 2, and I'm sure these guys will be chomping at the bit to get it going live. And after that, we'll sign it off. 904 and Phil. I'm Chip Davis.
Thank you.